Hello, can you hear me? I was not able to hear you.
Hello? Can you hear us? Hello, hello.
Hi, Jeremy, I can hear you.
Awesome.
I was not able to hear the meeting though.
Yeah, we didn't hear anything.
Okay. Christian had the same problem.
Yeah, they put us as panelists now, so I think now that we can hear that they changed it. 'Cause I didn't hear anything before.
So you couldn't hear us presenting before?
No, we couldn't
Nothing.
hear you.
So
Well,
should I do the
apologies.
introduction again, or do we have to start over?
We can, we do have time.
Okay,
the
I'm
presentation.
terribly sorry. I think, so we're just gonna start over.
That's fine.
Running on all cylinders tonight. Welcome to the Site and Architectural Review Commission, a subcommittee of Campbell's Planning Commission. I'm Adam Bookbinder, as the vice chair of the Campbell Planning Commission. I'm running this. This is Alan Zisser, also of Campbell Planning Commission, and planner Tracy Tam. This is an informal presentation. Tracy will present the project, and we'll have time for questions and answers. This isn't binding, but is a way for you folks to get an early sense of the Planning Commission's opinion on things.
Okay.
All right. With that, Tracy, do you want to run the presentation again?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for your patience.
Sorry about that, everyone. Usually the speaker is on.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's scroll to the floor plan. So the item in front of you tonight is a conditional use permit with site and architectural review. In 2019, the dental center actually come in to locate in suite A and B. Now that suite C, which previously was a hair, I think a salon, is vacant. The Ueno Dental Center is intending to take over suite C and to occupy the entirety of the building. Hence the need for the conditional use permit modification to specifically expand the use into suite C. Now, the application also includes a site and architecture review permit, which is primarily for the site changes that are being made, although minor, and also architectural changes. It's going to the elevations to better describe the architectural changes. There is an existing mezzanine that's seen from Shadydale Avenue that's proposed for being removed. In addition to the mezzanine, the exterior stairs are proposed to be removed. And so the new elevations will have this element here. So it's going to be, the exterior material is proposed to be stucco to match existing, and it's sort of be cleaned up a little bit. And this is the vantage point from Shadydale Avenue. Might I also mentioned some site modifications that are being done as well. So let me just scroll to the site plan. Okay, so this is the proposed site plan. As you can tell, there's two access points, one off Shadydale Avenue and the other off South Bascom Avenue. The project also proposes to add more trees to the parking lot to demolish the structure located in the rear of the trash enclosure, and also to upgrade the existing trash enclosure. So what that means is that the new trash enclosure is going to have a roof covering and also a way to drain to sanitary sewer, so the water has somewhere to go. And that in a nutshell sort of encapsulates the proposal in front of you tonight, which is a consideration of the conditional use permit, a site and architectural review permit with primary focus for tonight on the architecture and site changes. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you for writing that again. Would the applicant like to speak?
Sure. So, we've been in this space now for almost 6 years. And so At this point with the we're kind of running a full capacity, and we actually are running out of chairs now. So we are getting pretty busy, and my practice has really changed in the fact that we're looking at full health dentistry, complete health dentistry. And the reason why we want to expand is because a large part of our practice now is going to be focused on airway, especially airway for children, meaning helping kids breathe better. We believe that ADHD is due to sleep apnea in children. And so we want to do a big focus on how we can help these kids. And so as we expand, we're going to bring in specialties like myofunctional therapy. We currently work with ENTs throughout the area and oral surgeons to do certain types of surgeries to help with breathing. And my wife is also going to be involved with airway. She's a general dentist, and so she's trained in airway. Our son, who is 7, is autistic, and we believe that with my wife having sleep apnea, that was part of the reason why we have an increased risk of autism in children. So our goal is to increase the knowledge base of, complete health dentistry, try to help these kids so they don't have a failure to thrive, and just increase the level of competency and the connection between dentistry and medicine. I think there's a broad gap that's there, and I want to be one of the pioneers to help bridge that gap. And I believe if we do it in the city of Campbell, it definitely can put us on the map in terms of, our reach throughout. I mean, I envision us having almost a national brand in terms of what we're trying to do. And so that's what I'm really excited about is just helping kids. Again, I have 3 kids in which I believe one is affected because my wife has sleep apnea or increased the risk of it. And I look at, say, the children that are out there, all my kids' friends, a lot of them need certain procedures, airway procedures, tongue ties, things like that. And so I'm just looking forward to being able to help these kids because we see sleep apnea affecting so many adults today. And so again, complete health dentistry is my whole mission, and it's going to be in terms of bridging the gap between dentistry and medicine. And I believe that in terms of what we're proposing for the expansion, you can see that the learning center that we're building is going to be extremely large. I already teach live surgery courses, so people can come watch me do surgery. I do a lot of education. So I probably do about 20 education events a year. A lot of them are virtual. I just was in Vegas, Phoenix, and Florida to give education courses. But I do want to have a big influence in terms of educating our community, especially the local community and beyond, in terms of just elevating the knowledge base of the dentists that you guys may see personally and who your kids may see. And so I just see what we're trying to build as being something that's going to make the Bay Area healthier.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Did anybody else here want to speak? Or do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I appreciate your passion for your work. Interesting enough, I just got back from the dentist today, so not but somebody on the other side of town. But I just have a practical question about the staircase. Was there I don't know what the purpose of the staircase is there. Was that just an employee entrance or
Yeah, so what they had before, they had a mezzanine on top, and they would do, say, massage therapy or whatever there from the salon. There's like a lounge, I guess, up there because there's a full bathroom and stuff up there. So I believe that was just another entryway or exit way for the staff. But we're tearing down the mezzanine anyway, so that's why we don't need the staircase anymore.
I was just asking for the purpose of sometimes there's stairway requirements for emergency exits and things like that. So I just wanted to be sure that there wasn't any other purpose that would require the staircase. So doesn't sound like it.
Correct.
So I actually, it looks real straightforward. I don't really have any other questions. It looks like you're going to improve the put in some trees, which is always good. We like trees.
Yeah.
And looks like your architecture is going to match the existing architecture. So I don't really have any other questions, Adam.
No, I concur with Commissioner Zisser. This Congratulations on expanding, and this looks like a very reasonable use of the space. One thing I want to ask, I'm not sure if it's you or it's the architects here. Do you have bike facilities like bike parking included here? So I know that Bascom is being redone to be a bike corridor by this. I think the county's doing that.
There are currently none proposed.
Well, we have a bike rack. I don't know if that's.
Oh, that counts. That
Okay.
counts.
Yeah, there's a bike rack that we have at the front. Is there a minimum number of bike spaces we need to have, or?
You currently require nothing.
Okay.
The bike rack is extra, so thank you, appreciate it. No, that's all I had. Yeah, is there anybody else here who would like to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak just for a moment. My name is Christian Nielsen. I am the architect for the project. I do want to touch on a couple of things that have been brought up so far. Regarding the stairs and the mezzanine level, I think one of the advantages of this project as it's being proposed is the fact that it is on one level. So it is creating accessibility across the entire building. So no longer are there spaces within it that are not accessible to others. So I think that's an important fact for this project. I do have a question regarding procedure in terms of potential interpretations of the zoning ordinance or modifications or kind of that or allowances that may happen since this is we are this is, and this might not be the place for this. It might be in front of the full planning commission. So this is just kind of, I'm just asking the question. I don't know if this is the right spot or the right place for this. So regarding the trees, there is the requirement for the trees is across the board is 1 tree per 8 parking spaces. I believe that's what it is in the parking lot. In our application, we are proposing to add 2 parking spaces beyond what's there currently. And so when I think about that in terms of what's reasonable, it seems to me that adding 1 tree would be reasonable because we're adding 2 parking spaces beyond what we have. And this is, and we've had these discussions with Tracy, and Tracy's been great as a planner, and we've gone back and forth. And I think basically, as what's come out of that is that that's just the way the ordinance reads from Tracy's perspective, and we can't. She can't adjust that, but since we're in front of a discretionary review body, it feels like there might be, some ability to adjust that based on the kind of the circumstances. So we are adding 2 parking spaces. So like I said, it seems like, having 1 tree requirement would be reasonable. The reason why I bring it up is because the locations where we're putting these trees are not great from the perspective. There's a few reasons. One is, and I mean, I'll say we'll put them there if we have to, but there's a few things that lead me to believe that it's not a great place for trees. And trees to shade the parking lot, which is basically the intent of this ordinance is to shade the parking lot. One has to do with just where we're placing them, and where we have the ability to put them is on the north side of the property. So therefore, we're not really shading any parking due to the solar angle of the property. And the other thing with the area that we have to put these trees, there's only about 3 feet width between the property line and where we have to have our parking space. And that was, and we did talk with an arborist about this, and the arborist said that really 5 feet would be the minimum for planting a tree and providing that space for the tree to grow and survive. And so, and also just putting them right up against the property line with respect to the neighbor, also, may have adverse impacts on the neighbor. And so I just bring it up because I'm a little concerned about it. Obviously, if it's something that we're going to be required to do, we don't want that to get in the way of this application and this and an approval. But I do bring it up as just to see if there's a means to make some amendments to this and allow some leniency within the ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. I'm sure you already considered this, but I noticed that the landscaping is a lot wider on the west and south side. Is there a reason why we can't have the trees there?
Can you bring up, is it possible to share that PDF again?
Absolutely.
Page 10 of the packet.
Also, on that north side, that's actually the employee entrance of the building next to us. So like where you're showing the trees, that's where they have a walkway where the employees of the other building are walking back and forth as well. So I get a lot of leaves and everything on their side.
So to the question, are you saying to the west side of the building and to the south side of the building?
Yeah. Is there a reason the trees can't be there?
And Beatrice, you can jump in because you kind of were more involved in that. But yeah, so go ahead. You can.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a sheet called TSP1. It might be the last one in the set. We have the arborist survey. So just to bring up that there are already some landscapes, some trees in most of the the wider planters. And then but we do already have some existing trees.
That's my mistake.
Yeah, so I believe that the idea was to put them to include them around the parking lot to provide a canopy over the parking lot. So that's what we had to come up with.
Okay, can I ask a question here,
Yes.
Tracy? Can you explain to me why there's an additional requirement for trees in the first place, and what our regulation is? I'm not under the impression that we put the trees in for shading the parking lot necessarily, but could you explain to me exactly what, more detail on this issue?
Absolutely. So there is a requirement in the parking and loading chapter of the code that talks about where if there's 25 or more parking spaces are provided, it's a minimum of 1 tree per 8 parking spaces, or a fraction thereof. And it does say that the tree spacing shall be provided at a minimum to provide a tree canopy over the parking lot. And so in this case, because the project site does contain more than 25 parking spaces, they would be subject to this 1 tree per 8 parking space requirement. The idea is to provide the canopy over the parking spaces. The code doesn't give leniency if the site is already developed. It's because as sites come in for entitlements, these are the requirements in which
So you say even if they hadn't met the requirement in the past, they have to now meet the requirement now because of the changes. So what you're saying? Because it looks like, they had already 41 spaces, right? They already had 41 spaces. They're adding 2. So in theory, they're supposed to have those trees already. So you were saying now, even though it wasn't up to the requirement, that now we're asking for the requirement. Is that it?
Right. And it could be that when the property was originally developed, this requirement to have 1 tree per every 8 spaces did not yet exist in our code. There was a comprehensive update that was done, I believe, in the 2006 timeframe, in which that could have been enacted at that point. But it could be that when the property was originally developed, this requirement simply wasn't in existence, and so it wasn't a requirement to comply with.
So I'm sorry, I think I'm missing something. There are already 19 trees that cover the property in whole or in part, although it looks like 2 of them are not actually on the property, numbers 1 and 2. there's, at the end of this is going to be less than 48 spaces. That would require 6 trees. They certainly already have more than 6 trees. Why do they need more trees?
Let's see. I thought there was a deficiency in the number of trees.
I could be reading this wrong, but on that page, it lists 19 trees on page TSP1.
Okay, let's see. So there's 43 parking spaces. Let's see. Oh. 3, see, 4 included here. Back to the page.
Do those other trees not count because they're not covering the parking lot?
Right, that was the general intent, that because the parking lot, I mean, the code does say that tree spacing shall be provided at a minimum to provide a tree canopy over the parking lot, which to me would imply that some of these perhaps would not count. Number 3 can certainly count, but recognizing that is a tight site, there was an exercise that we had explored, because the drive aisles, it's not quite shown in this sheet here, but the drive aisles are bigger than what they are required to be. And so there was a conversation to see if trees could be, by restriping the lot and reducing the drive aisle width, if that would free up space to have additional planting areas, so that the dimension of the planting area could be of a sufficient size to allow for the tree planting to occur. But I believe in working with Beatrice on this, there was not a lot of room that would buy in order to have like a proper planting area for some of these trees to mature. But also, I think, you know, on one hand, it does depend on the trees themselves. You know, if something that is a larger canopy that does require generally more room to grow as the drip line, you know, as the canopy gets bigger, drip line gets bigger. There's certainly species that could be explored here that are smaller in nature, in which, you know, can potentially survive in a smaller planting area.
Yeah, so let me ask you, I'm just, you know, thinking as alternatives. So the 43 spaces is the requirement, right?
Right, they are meeting the parking
Meet
requirement.
the parking requirement. Is, from the applicant's point of view, is that more than enough spaces, the right amount of spaces?
Yeah, so at this point, I think 43 is a great amount of spaces for us to have. I mean, we do have a fairly large team and the practice is busy, but you know, there's high turnover, so people are coming in and out. And so I think 43 is an adequate amount of spaces. So we're never to a point where we run out of spaces. That's never happened in our history. So,
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, what I'm getting at is we have, under certain circumstances, giving variant, whatever you want to call it, variance, and reduce the number of spaces, you know, and then one option would be to use 2 or 3 spaces for trees. Okay, in the parking lot, in the tree, in the space area, which would give you more room. Like, you know, you could put it out from the edge of this, you know, like in a space in different locations. They don't have to all be in the same place. They could be spread out in the parking lot on the outer edges. But then we'd have to give we'd have to cut back the parking spaces. So if we wanted 3 trees, we thought this wasn't the right spot, but we wanted to, and I'm not speaking for the planning commission. I'm just saying that, you know, one way would be to reduce the number of spaces to give you a logical place to put a tree in a whatever you want to call it, a little partitioned area in say 3 spaces. If we were to cut back on 3 spaces, if in fact the planning commission felt that that was still a sufficient number of parking spaces, that would be you know.
So I appreciate you thinking outside the box. However, I do believe with the addition that we're doing, the expansion, we are going to have a higher need for spaces than what we currently
Yeah,
do.
that's what I was asking about, whether or not you feel you're going to need this many spaces. Because you know better than me about your clients and what you're getting now and what you'll be getting in the future. So
Right. Yeah. So in today's climate, yeah, 43 is more than plenty. But once we expand it, because obviously we're going to have more team members involved as well. So, I would definitely want to try to maintain 43 if we can.
So I'd like to just note one other thing, that there's on the TSP page, there's tree number 6 is a small tree, but it is in the parking lot. It's just marked as being unknown, but healthy.
where's that?
It's right next to 4 and 5 in the upper right-hand corner.
Hmm.
There's actually 4 covering the parking lot. Which would mean that you would actually need, I believe, 2 more. Unless.
Can we
he is
get
number
one
7.
next to? Can we get one next to the ADA space, the space 11? There's a plot of land there that may be amenable, because right now we have bushes there.
You mean between numbers 10 and 11?
No, I mean talking about the space, the ADA space
Oh.
11. So there is a strip there that might be a possibility.
You kind of have to tell us whether you think you could.
Are you asking us, or are you asking your
Oh,
architect?
no, it's a strip of land that we have plants there right now.
I think that is I think it's a viable spot. I think what I want to know before we choose the locations, I'd like to know how many we really need to have, and then we can figure out where they go. I'm curious if there's any, and we started the conversation kind of go down the path that this parking lot and the building more than likely pre-exists this tree requirement, and this, and with the 41 spaces that are currently here, that has been fine, and now we're adding 2 more spaces. And again, I feel like if we're going to add 2 spaces, then then our requirement should be based on the 2 spaces we're adding. I mean, if we were adding 8 spaces, then we would need another apartment tree. If we were adding 10 spaces or 14 spaces, we would need 2 trees. I mean, that's kind of how I would, that's how I logically look at it. So I'm just curious if there's any, is there any ability to look at it that way? And again, like, is this, sorry?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
So when a project comes in for a conditional use permit and for a site and architectural review, those are discretionary permits, in which case the entire site could be opened up. It's like the argument with the trash enclosure. You're coming in to ask for this additional discretionary approval from the city. And so the city does retain the ability to upgrade the site to meet current standards. While I understand your logic, if you're adding 2 spaces, you should be held to the 2 spaces for parking. For the inclusion of trees. Unfortunately, that is not how the ordinance is phrased. It merely looks at 1 tree per 8 spaces. It's not a distinction that we can make, as the code does not allow us to make that distinction.
So to be clear, if they were touching the parking lot in any way, say they were just restriping, keeping the number of spaces the same, they would still have to bring that up to current standards?
If the parking lot would require discretionary action, yes.
And the parking lot requires a discretionary action because?
So it's a couple of things. It's one, the trash enclosure, the site and architecture review permit component of it not only takes a look at the changes in architecture, but in that discretionary process, staff is, looking at coming into compliance with current standards. And so with that, it's the trash enclosure needing to make sure it meets current standards, and also the inclusion of parking lot trees.
Okay, well, my own opinion on this is, like, I like the idea of putting a tree on the island there. If it's possible to add more. So this parking lot was obviously designed not with our current guidelines in mind, and we're trying to think of ways to bring it into compliance with our current guidelines. That being said, like, from my point of view, I don't want to make this project undoable because the parking lot's not designed in a way that, you know, you would have to completely redo it from scratch, and that's unreasonable. One of the things we've done when it's been really impossible without an undue hardship to arrange the trees is that we've taken in lieu fees, but that's on a discretionary basis, and the planning commission would have to be okay with that. Do you remember about what that involves?
That I'm not sure. I would have to take a look at conditions of approval in which that situation could have been permissible. So I would have to take a look at that.
I vaguely remember that we've done that in a situation where, okay, you can't put one tree here, so you have to buy the city 2 trees somewhere else or something like that. Because I don't think that's in the code anywhere, but in practice, historically, that's the sort of thing we've done.
Hey, quick question. So in that area behind the trash enclosure where we have to do landscaping, isn't that an area that we can potentially put trees as well? It will cover that space 29.
Correct. So that there is a tree there presently or proposed, with the structure being removed from the rear of the enclosure. Just shifting over. Yeah, so there is a tree proposed in that area here.
Okay.
Oh, so there's currently
Yeah.
4. That's going to be number 5,
Right.
and number 6 could be on that spur next to the accessible space, and you don't need to have the 3 up there.
Right. Staff was also counting the one in the corner here, as it does. Well, I guess it does cover a parking space, understanding that the site is tight. And so with the inclusion of these 1, 2, 3, 4 trees, really the inclusion of this tree, and I think there's also a tree in the corner here.
There's 3.
Mhm.
They don't all cover the parking space, but they're adjacent
Right,
to it.
right. At least the one in this corner adjacent to the parking space number 31. Go back to the,
So we trees number 3 and 4 would count, and there'd be one more.
right, these 2 back here.
So we don't. So staff only wants to count one of those.
Do all the parking spaces have to be full car parking spaces
There is a.
versus a motorcycle parking space? For
Yeah.
example,
So that is a possibility. Of a certain percentage of the parking spaces can be designated motorcycle parking spaces, in which can reduce the size of the, the actual stall itself, creating additional
That's what I'm
area for landscaping. But staff did not go that route because there was a concern from an adjacent neighbor that folks visiting this facility may park on the street in front of their house, while understanding that it is public parking. Staff wanted to be sensitive to that concern, to not lose any of the parking spaces on site, but that is an option.
Yeah,
that can be pursued.
I'm just.
I feel rather.
Taking a couple spaces, just taking 1 or 2 spaces and making motorcycle spaces.
I know that people feel like they own the spaces in front of their houses, but like, if they want to have them, we should have a residential permit program. Neither here nor there. So I realize that we haven't come down on any particular thing. Has this been helpful?
I think a little bit. I am curious a little bit about this motorcycle parking thing. So if our requirement, how many motorcycle spaces equal a car space? Is it
In terms of
1-to-1?
size or in terms of our
No,
substitution?
yeah, substitution. Is it 1 motorcycle to 1 car? Is that how that works?
No, so it says developments that provide 20 or more spaces may designate parking facilities for motorcycle parking. It may substitute for up to 5 spaces or 10% of the required vehicle parking, whichever is less.
But it's still 1-for-1 swap from car to motorcycle, correct?
That can't be.
No, it's not. I can send you the code section. Actually, I don't have your contact information.
Does
I
that
can send it
actually-
to Beatrice.
Well,
Does that
it would
actually
be
say space?
shallower for one thing, so you could then, either
Right.
shallower or less wide, and then there would be room to put in a place for one or two trees is what I was thinking about. If you can designate a couple of spaces for motorcycles, and that it would reduce the footprint and
Mhm.
give you more room to put in a tree or two. So that's my thinking, but
Mhm.
you know, you can talk to the planners about that to see if,
Okay.
you know, the specifics on that.
Yeah.
And then come back to us when, you know, if that's one option that makes sense.
Yeah, we can certainly talk offline about this, and I can send you the code section, which talks about the ratio and the size requirements.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
if
we
it
could
does,
look into it.
and just generally speaking, if it does turn out to be just like, you can't fit trees onto this lot in that way. I mean, there's already literally almost 24 trees there, 19 trees on there currently. They're just not exactly in the right place. Like, you can apply for what's the particular permit to adjust the tree requirements?
It would likely be a variance, but staff does need to make the legal findings for variance, and I'm not sure if we can make it in this case, but
Even if they would have to, you know, redo the site in a really burdensome way.
it kind of depends on how it's being done, but that's something that we would have to evaluate. But with the variance application, that would require
Mhm.
additional fees it would need to be rolled into the permitting procedures.
Ugh. Don't want to put you through that.
Right, but I think we can
Right.
probably work together to see if we can find a creative solution, you know, the motorcycle park being a great solution, so. We can
And
work together to.
extra- Yeah, and extra space for trees on that place next to the ADA space.
Right,
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good.
I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much for your time. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments?
You know, hopefully we can find a solution.
Yeah, good luck, and
I do see
I hope
there's a person in the attendees, if they wanted to, an opportunity to speak.
does the person who's an attendee want to speak? If so, please raise your hand using the appropriate Zoom function. If not, we're going to guess that you're here just to watch. Okay. All right. We hope to see you at Planning Commission, and good luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.